Thanks everyone for joining us on time for today's webinar. And today's webinar is, of course, an extremely important one because we are having a person who's a veteran in the field. Doesn't looks like because of how well maintained or well groomed the person is, and also believes in circular economy. We have none other than Rohit Adlakha, sir. Adlakha means 50,000, as multiple times he mentions, and he is an orator par excellence. Now, here starts the boring bit of my preface. I will quickly be introducing and here starts the laundry list of things that Sir has been doing. He's a technology enthusiast, as his LinkedIn profile talks about, and a passionate leader. And what we are really looking forward today is understanding decoding AI, understanding the various bits of AI, and how Sir's 26 years of career has beautifully crafted a deeper understanding of how technology has become all pervasive overall. So he's having 26 years, roughly 27. We stand it corrected during the introduction right now of experience, out of which 15 plus years in leadership experience. He's built a continuing 2-decade career where he's nurturing, scaling businesses, particularly making sure that they are profitable sustainably. And of course, ESG is something which is very, very dear to him. Making sure that businesses are running from infancy to sustainable profitability, and how important teams are, teams engagement is. That is something which is really important, and therefore we say he's a passionate leader. He's been a former Chief Digital and Information Officer at Wipro. And whenever we are looking at interactions with Sir, we've seen that he's constantly telling us about the kind of role, the context in which we are. And there are very important aspects that I'll quickly walk you through that Sir always talks about. Can you just imagine that when we are talking about 1 internet minute, how many things can actually come under? And that is where Sir's constantly telling us about the fact that, on Google, there are 5.7 million searches that are conducted. On WhatsApp, there are roughly about 44 million WhatsApp searches. This is per minute, and this concept is called 1 internet minute. And we'll be decoding all these aspects. We'll be decoding the way AI is changing our world, and how Sir's leadership has played a very promising role. Also, when we're looking at today's day and age, understanding AI, the various myths that are associated with AI, we'll be digging in deeper about it. And one very interesting thing about Sir is that despite the fact that in his previous experience, so he worked with Wipro for 26 years, and that's where I'm very curious to know, because when I was excavating more or digging deeper to prepare this introduction, I was taken aback. I couldn't really make out that would be the number of years of experience that you'll have, the way that you maintained yourself, the way that you were so lively while making those various speeches. And also he was, from the most ragged fresher to becoming a veteran CXO, not just having one post, but 3 posts altogether when he left Wipro. So that is, of course, there. And we'll be understanding, like Sir says, water everywhere. Now it's robo everywhere. It's automation everywhere. It is all about AI, automation, technology. So a lot of myths will be decoded. A lot of aspects will be understood. We'll also understand better how we can be prepared for jobs of the future. And just like we were telling Sir that most of our recruiters have also been like builder.ai or huno.ai. Now that .ai is really transforming the landscape overall. Sir, I will let you spearhead the conversation. Really excited. Of course, we know about your illustrious career, about how you've held these leadership positions. You were the Chief Digital Officer. You were the CIO. You were the leading automation and AI wing at Wipro for 26 years before you left, and right now you help startups scale and companies scale predominantly in areas of AI, cybersecurity, collaboration, health and wellness, and the list goes endless. I think I can just go on and probably have a thesis on your profile, the rich profile that you're having, and still you keep it so humble and low-key. But over to you, Sir. We'd love to know more about you, and then, of course, the context in which we are, the interesting times in which we are all growing up. So over to you, Sir.
Thank you very much, Neerja, and hi, friends. I have half a mind of actually passing on the baton to Neerja. She's done a fantastic job, and I was just thinking of adjectives on the introduction. So there was eloquence, there was excitement, and there was exuberance. So 3 E's. But great job she's done in introducing. I'm based in a beautiful city called Bangalore, and been here for about 20 years. Behind me, which is the wallpaper that I have, is one of the nice lakes very close to a house walking distance. Bangalore is a city which erstwhile had about 1,000 lakes, is now down to about 180 active lakes. But still, weather-wise and people-wise and lakes-wise, it's a great place to be in. So if it's okay, I'll go in for a monologue for about 15, 20 minutes. And I can see a good number of people have actually joined in, aspirants looking to carve their future careers. And I'll leave the floor open as to what kind of questions you have. But I'll try and keep it as experiential as possible so that you're able to relate it to as also to the maximum. So a quick backgrounder before my professional journey. Our father was in the army. He spent 35 years. And as a result, we were touring all of India. And we didn't have what we call permanency in life because everything was transient. Posting can be as short as 8 months to perhaps 4 years. So you make friends, you keep making new friends, you keep changing schools. So this whole idea about resilience, this whole idea about adaptability, and of course volatility in life has really taught us, to be ready for the real world, as they actually say. I finished my schooling in Delhi. I don't know how many of you are from Delhi, but there is a fairly famous school called Delhi Public School uh, in NCR from Noida. I finished my 12th from there. I did my engineering from a college called Delhi College of Engineering. I don't know if you've heard about it. And the interesting part is, I was the first to actually get placed in the entire campus batch. And the day I was going for my induction training to Bangalore from Noida, and I was going to the airport, and we climbed down the steps, and I opened the letterbox just to check if anything is there in the mail. And from there was a call from IMT Ghaziabad for an MBA. And of course, you're in crossroads that you're going in to a job and you have an MBA offer letter in hand. And I decided to carry on and I took the flight, and here I am after 27 years. So Wipro was an absolute fantastic journey. You're whether it's the right job that you're in, is it the right company? And I personally never thought whether I'll spend, more than 25 years in one company itself. But if I look back in that 25 and a half years from May 1995 to December 2020, when I joined, there were about 5,000 people in the company, and it was about $100 million in terms of revenue. When I exited, it was a $10 billion organization roughly with 250,000 people. And I had seen 8 CEOs in my lifetime of 26 years almost at the company. But I think it gave a great platform for you to learn, for you to unlearn, make great friends, build on relationships, get experiences every minute, every second of your life. And with 16 different roles I think I got opportunities to work with almost every different group of the company. So whether it's the market facing unit, whether it's back end, not the right word perhaps, but the competence building and product management, whether it was incubating new businesses, whether it was handling large businesses, I think the company literally gave fantastic opportunities. And in 2019, I took over 3 roles. And the joke in the company was I had more CXO titles than the CEO himself. So I was the chief digital officer. The idea was, how do you make the company Wipro more digital? How do you make it more fleet-footed, more nimble, more agile? How do you bring in great experiences, which is what we call mobile first and cloud native? And how do you transform the company in terms of growth, in terms of trust, in terms of communication? And that was one of the biggest programs that we were running in the company itself. The CIO role was thoda hatke, if you understand that phrase in Hindi. And my role was to basically not just transform the IT, but also keep the lights on. So I had about 4,000 people working with me. I had a budget which was about $250 million. Not too bad if you call it small change. And it was a great learning experience. Literally 24/7, looking at how you manage operations in terms of uptime, how do you manage cyber resilience, because IT and tech companies are always under attack. And every 40 seconds, there is one enterprise getting targeted in a big way, apart from, all the phishing emails that you actually get. Beyond that, the major attacks are about one per 40 seconds. The third CXO role was what I used to call it the Chief Automation and AI Officer. So I was running a business unit, and I'll talk a little bit more about automation and AI since that is in the news, especially from November 2022, when something called Chat GPT got launched by OpenAI. So I'll talk a little bit about that. But it was a business unit. When I inherited it, it was about $1 million. When I exited, it was about $100 million. So again, a fantastic growth, great teamwork, great market presence, great brand building, and a superlative product. Uh, and again, on a lighter note, the product was called Holmes, Sherlock Holmes. And I don't know whether the inspiration came from Sherlock Holmes or they coined the acronym and then it translated back to Holmes. But that was a business that I was leading. So all in all, three CXO roles. Prior to that, I was part of what we call the cloud and infrastructure business, which was roughly $2.5 billion for the company. Prior to that, I was in client engagement. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Bharti Group. Airtel, which is the second largest by subscriber numbers, is the client that I was looking at. So I've done client services, client engagement. I've done strategy and marketing. I've done delivery and operations. So I think it was a very, very wholesome experience. And except for HR and finance, which you anyways do in your daily job, but I didn't do that as a dedicated role. I had done almost every possible role in the company. Been in India, been in Germany, been in US. So, all round performance is what they actually call. So December 2020, there was a calling. I can't explain that calling. I think it was a higher calling. And somewhere I felt internally that perhaps it's time to move since I'd done almost every possible role, leadership role in the company. And I moved out on December 10th, 2020. So it's been more than 2 years since I left Wipro. Post that, my career has transformed dramatically. A lot of dedicated full-time roles came in. But when I felt that you've done a CXO role for a company which is $10 billion with 250,000 people, you've done it fairly well. So a lot of roles came, but they didn't really, excite me in that sense, in terms of size, scale, complexity, and learning. And if you would have it, I changed my thinking in life. Earlier, I used to be very, very regimented. Earlier, I used to be very disciplined, saying this is how my career graph is going to go. This is how my life will go. But it was, I would say, more of divine guidance that I started into what I call CXO as a service. We've heard of infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. But CXO as a service is a fairly new concept. So right now I'm working with 9 different companies. I'm not into full-time employment with any of them, but I'm doing what I call a CXO role for each one of them. Some companies need help in strategy and execution. Some companies need help in investments. Others need help in terms of product. Some want their go-to-market uh, channels along with customer success, and some are just wanting to build thought leadership and branding. So these are the 5 pillars that I work with multiple companies, and I work with them based on scope. I sign up long-term contracts. So just like you've used shared cab services like Uber and Ola, just like you use Airbnb, just like you use all what we call an Uberized platform, that is where the tech economy is actually moving towards what I call the gig economy. Uh, and People are very, very well versed with this from a developer to an architect level. But the moment you talk about CXO, not very many people are willing to experiment, with their career like this. So in some sense, it's very, very pioneering. And like Neerja said, these companies are working in AI, sustainability, health and wellness, education, and I'll talk a little bit about soil and how I got associated with soil, uh, talent engagement, talent recruitment, then areas like customer experience. So it's, in a way, the way my career has shaped is just superlative. It's nine different companies, nine different ethos, nine different places of working. Some are based in US, some are based in the UAE, different time zones. So I think it's very, very enriching experience in the last 2+ years ever since I've worked in this as a service model. Apart from that, I also felt that you need to give due focus to yourself, to your family, to your friends. And I call it life 2.0 in some sense for me. So there was a career in Wipro for 25 and a half years, and then there's a career and a life, after Wipro. So I started focusing a lot on what I call all-round development, and I would seriously profess that to all of you that you should focus on that. I don't know how it happened, but I started learning the flute, the Carnatic flute. I don't know where the inspiration came from. So apart from career, a good balance came in from the Carnatic flute. This yearning to excel in cricket, I started taking cricket coaching, and I started playing cricket after I don't know how many decades. And when I take my bat and my kit along, people wonder, they think that I'm actually going to train and coach, juniors from school. But that I tell them that, listen, I'm going for coaching personally where I'm going to learn myself. So that's the second thing that I, started as a balance to my overall life. The third, of course, is what Neerja mentioned in terms of health and wellness. I think I became a little more conscious, and sometimes we become a little careless, with our lives in terms of what we eat, uh, how much of sleep are we getting, what are we actually eating, how much are we exercising. So I've kept a thumb rule that one class a day. There is a very interesting fitness chain called Cult. I think it's there in Delhi, is there in Mumbai, and I do one class a day. So I alternate amongst gym, Cult classes, yoga, and cricket. So that keeps me reasonably fit, I would say. Not extremely fit. You always aspire to, do more. But that's a brief about me, my career till now, my life till now. And I'll take a pause. Neerja, if there are any questions or anything from your side you want to add before I switch over to a little more talk about AI and soil.
Absolutely. I think I didn't get enough online on your personal life, and this is so interesting and very, very inspiring to see that, you again rekindling that love for Carnatic flute or cricket. It's very inspiring. And I think that's where, from the marketing perspective, we also get a clickbait bite because, a lot of us forget we're not taking our lives very seriously. So I think that was really interesting. However, there was one question that we got ever since we've told people that you'll be that we'd received, and there is the student Shaurya, and he had written to us asking you a little bit more, because you talk a lot about how there's this entire there's, of course, you were trying to situate this conversation, and you said that you got a good budget to get AI integrated, and artificial intelligence is something that has been close to your heart, especially when you exited Wipro. You were trying to integrate AI. So, when we're looking at the current landscape, and when we look at your profile from 1995 to 2020, that was a solid, incredible career. And to say about today, as you clearly mentioned, that it is the time of gig economy, where a lot of people are experimenting, they're exploring, they're trying to figure out. So Shorter's question was predominantly that in a very fast-paced VUCA world, or now the Bani world, although acronyms keep on changing, and like you said, being nimble, being agile, they are really important. But as a student who's currently probably wanting to pursue management education or wanting to figure out how to draw a broad contour of his or her own career graph, how can they probably get started? Of course, we know about your journey. We've all been really looking at that. But what would your advice be to such a kind of a person who's just kickstarting their career, where the opportunities are immense, the times are changing, the one internet minute, the nimbleness is so critically important? How can they figure out for themselves?
So I'll take a step back, Nirja, if that's okay, and then I'll try and answer
Definitely.
Nore's question.
Definitely.
So first of all, the human body, if we can very simply divide it into three parts, you have the human brain, you have your sensory organs, and then you have your motor skills. So I'm sure all of you are familiar with that. And this trifactor of three things, the three A's this time, again, three acronyms, which is AI, which is analytics, and also automation, are three things which are actually going hand in hand. Sometimes people use them interchangeably, but there are three distinct areas that we can potentially look at. So AI is like your human brain, which focuses on reasoning and decision making. It's your automation is like your motor skills, which actually make you move and act. And of course, analytics is like your sensory organs in terms of picking up data and really imbibing it in different forms and creating knowledge and inferences out of that. All three are a must in our lives today, because things are moving at such a fast paced in what I call the fourth industrial revolution, where you're actually converging the physical worlds, the virtual worlds, and the biological worlds, all three of them coming together. And interestingly, AI is binding all of these together through it. And I'll give you a few examples. If you look at knowingly and unknowingly, artificial intelligence, which started in the 1950s, of course before I was born, by a gentleman called John McCarthy, and you know around the early 2000s is when AI started coming back into a little more prominence. And now if you look at it, it's there all around us. So Chat GPT, which has taken the world by storm, everyone seems to be blogging, posting, trying hours and hours there. And in like the Terminator version, Terminator 1, Terminator 2, 3, all of them, where you have the robo coming in from the AI is also self evolving. Came 3.5 from OpenAI, came in 4. So the pace at which AI is immense. So it's not just text and chat. If you look at what we call generative AI in general, or AGI, artificial general intelligence, that's becoming big for everyone. I just put a blog yesterday. There is a company called Runway. Take a look at it. Runway earlier used to video, which means you enter DALI or stable diffusion. You write something and it creates an image for you. This creates, and they've just now or two with it may actually seem unreal. So if you're doing any actions, it will make and create a figure out of you. You can put in a storyline and it will create a whole video. And I like the tagline of this company called Runway, which says, no lights, no camera, all action. So that's the way, life is actually progressing. And of course, there are softer aspects of it. There are issues of trust, there are issues of bias, there are issues of auditability. But this human AI relationship is something that will morph more and more as we move ahead. Now, when you're actually starting your career, you're always in a quandary that the subject can go on for years and decades, and still you may just feel that you've touched the tip of the iceberg. How do you make sure that you are actually keeping abreast? The rule is that there is no stopping in terms of reading and assimilating. So by being socially aware of what's happening in the market. You look at any company and they have their own AI journey. So it's OpenAI. Google launched its Bard on something called Lambda. Microsoft Bing, Microsoft has just launched, on the very familiar products, that is Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. They've launched their own, AI assistants for that itself. Adobe, you name it, everyone has that. So the first very simple thing is just keep abreast with what companies are doing, the large companies and even niche companies like Runway that I talked about. The second thing is there are enough courses available in the market, so you could do a beginner's course to begin. Then don't get too diffident about that. I'm not an engineer. Done a BA or a BSc, and I've done my MBA or plan to do my MBA after that. You know, people used to have a direct correlation between what you study to what you experience to what you work, but those correlations have all gone. So you could be from any field in the past, but you can still carve your using this. And even if you're in the field of HR and finance, so you just can't be a CA plus finance. You have to learn AI and automation to be successful in life nowadays. So the second thing I would strongly suggest is there are enough beginners plus advanced courses. For example, our son, when he was in grade 11, 12, he did a course from a fairly well-known company called Coursera, started again by what they call the father of AI. I would say disciple of AI, Andrew NG. So there are enough courses which are available on AI to become abreast, which is great for your knowledge and also to put on your CV or resume when you go back and say that, uh, I have worked on this technology, I have learned this, I've done this, gives you the extra marks in the career itself. For your career, a great disrupt bent of mind that they're continuously innovating. And I'll give you an example. A few decades back, Japan was very famous for technology disruption. Their companies were in top 50. You could name them. They were all Japanese companies, most of them. But now when you look back, as they were not able to keep pace with what changes or disruptions which are happening. Generation gaps, which used to be 20 years, are now down to 5 years and may be down to perhaps 2 years very, very soon. And you can see a marked difference between people who are 2 years apart. But the point is, don't innovate at a disruptive speed, won't be able to survive. And from us, it's come down to 10 years of a potential company. So how to 50 years to 100 company itself. The fourth thing, fundamentals of life. And if or heard about the Bhagavad Gita, there are three basic tenets which I talked about earlier also, which are your three pillars of life. Those three pillars are Gyan, which is knowledge, Karm, which is work and experiences, and the third is what we call Bhakti or devotion or consciousness. The fact is that in this VUCA world, as Nirja said, or now the Bani world, which is brittle, anxious, non-linear, and incomprehensible. Don't get too bogged down by the acronyms. The fact is that the life is changing dramatically, but you need to keep these three fundamentals, where three pillars of strength, as three pillars that will guide you through. You can't say, "Arey yaar, ab to school khatam ho gaya. Arey yaar, now college is over. Arey yaar, I've got a dream job," and that is it. You have to be in the constant evolution. I don't know if you've got this feeling of deja vu that you go on leave for 1 week and you come back to office and you feel, "Arey, life has gone ahead so much. I'm absolutely outdated." Or you try and go on a family holiday where it's a phone detox, and you come back and say, my God, 1,000 WhatsApp messages, what do I do? I'm totally out of breath and out of sync with what's happening in life itself. So the fact is that you have to be in constant learning. You have to, in school and college, we have theory and practicals. So you have to have a combination of both. And you need to feel connected with everyone, especially in this world with more virtual at this juncture. Apart from perhaps eating, which also now we are using Swiggy and Zomato very effectively, our communication with people, our learning, our teaching, our working, everything is becoming remote. So this connectedness of what we call human consciousness and being connected with people where you work as teams is becoming all the more important. And why I'm, stressing on that, there are many higher education institutes, there are many MBA institutes, but you should look for institutes which can give you these three fundamental principles of life, not just in terms of learning, but also applicability all throughout, where you actually live and experience these three principles across. So when you see the principles with the PLE, not the student principal, college principal of soil, and go on to the website, the whole thing about being connected, being aware, integrity, live is what will life come. So better inculcate all these possibilities. So an institute learning, an institute which gives you basic fundamentals of life and gives you an opportunity to actually make friends and network and learn experientially all throughout, is what I've understood about soil in my last about roughly about 5 to 6 months with them. So I would strongly urge that if you're looking at higher education, if you're looking at pursuing the coveted, MBA degree, or you may call it in terms of acronyms, I think soil is a great place to be in.
Absolutely. You've summed it up so beautifully. And we were all together and how constant learning is so critical. That the next question that we are having is actually correlated. I was just going over this post also, which was there, that how in 1988 the maths teachers were protesting against calculators, and cut short 2023 we are. And even one of our live viewers has actually given this question. We see you also discussing these questions in multiple chat or platforms that you've been a part of, that people are more thinking about these negative aspects than the positive aspects of AI. And here I would like to dig a little deeper and get your perspective. Even though we know that you mentioned that by 2024, which is not so far, there'll be 500 billion in terms of AI investments, and you're looking very closely at that area of startup investments. 2030, which is again not so far, as you say, there is 15 trillion worth of impact that AI will actually automatically create. But still, there's so much in terms of people are looking at the at concepts like singularity, the nightmare scenario, where they're also talking about extermination, extinction of the human race only that AI will get. We'd like to know your perspective, because we know that you are really positive about it. You say that there are enough jobs, so there will be certain out, but there will be enough jobs for us. There'll be domain experts like yourself, and like you said that you are giving CEO as a service, or the chief aspects as a service altogether. And like you said about, so the product managers will try to draw and make sure that the product into the wants and the needs, ethics, and sociologists. Interesting. So I'd love to know your perspective on that, because a lot of students like myself who are coming from humanities, we are often very critical. That's the aspect of late capitalism, as Frederick Jameson also talks about it. But you talk about robo lawyers, and here I'd love to know, an ESG enthusiast mind when there are so much of negative aspects, and even a live viewer, like I said, has asked about it. How can we change that entire aspect to gloss more about the positive aspects that AI will get? And there are enough jobs, as you always say. So could you help us understand that perspective a little bit more? How can we just lay or assuage that sort of negativity which is around AI overall?
That's a power-packed, long list of questions. I'll try and answer them one by one. So one is anytime there is a disruption in our lives, humans have a great way of evolution, right from, the dinosaur moment to where we are right now. But the fact is that with every industrial revolution, what when the steam engine was invented or electricity came in, it was very unsettling for the human race, because with every disruption, we look at the positives, we look at the so-called negatives, we look at human adjustment, and then life goes on because we start evolving and get onto a higher level of life itself. I think the challenge is that the pace at which AI is coming in, especially in the last 6 to 9 months, is immense, and it's in some sense very hard for people to digest what's happening in the world right here, right now. So the pace of change is one thing which is very, very settling. The second thing is that humans are very used to talking to humans. Even though we are virtual, we still have a level of emotional connect or EQ, while we are speaking to you. And so we feel connected, we feel comfortable, our guard is a little down, uh, hassled, we are at ease in speaking. But the moment you switch gears and saying that, what, I'm going to have a conversation with a non-human who's a cloud bot sitting somewhere, perhaps not the city or country or even the same continent as me, unnerving. So the pace of change, this non-physical connect of something which is virtual sitting on the unsettling. As a corollary of this, the trust factor is not very high with the people. So humans may trust humans, but what is the bot doing? What decision is it making? Is it infiltrating into my personal data without knowing that we've already given 70, 80, 90% of our data to, social media apps, unknowingly or knowingly? And they may perhaps know more about us in terms of our behaviors and what we call AI observability, that they may know more about us in sleeping, our friends, what we eat, our interest areas, the next destination we want to plan for a holiday. Perhaps AI may know, more about that. So this whole question about trust, about biases, and these questions start coming, and we don't realize ourselves that humans are extremely biased, and based on caste, creed, religion, geography, accent, gender. We don't realize it, but there are inherent biases in humans. So we sometimes end up seeing these flaws a little more apparently with technology, rather than looking at humans. So these questions are coming in terms of, like I said, trust, auditability, decision making. So the whole thing about keeping control with humans is something which will not get relinquished, very, very easily. The fourth aspect is that, whenever we push to do more, uh, for example, there is a job description, it's a 9 to 5, you're extremely excited, and then it goes on like this. It's great because I really don't have to push myself, that much. But the moment you start getting pushed in terms of becoming a higher version of yourself, then it becomes very, very uncomfortable. And this whole idea about consciousness, this whole idea about self-belief, looking within, spirituality, which is what differentiates humans from machines, is not very comfortable subject for us. So someone mentioned that if you have to rise above the machines, if you have to rise above technology, then keep that one thing intact which differentiates us as humans, which is the consciousness and the soul, as people call about it. So focus on that, because it's very uncomfortable to look within. It's very uncomfortable to look at your own flaws and improve yourself. It's very uncomfortable to step by step understand yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, because that is what differentiates you as a human. We're very good in playing games, we're very good in doing Google internet search, we're great in doing shared apps and social media, But the moment it switches, the spotlight switches internally, it becomes a very difficult subject for us. And I think that's the discomfort, this quandary, this dilemma that humans are facing. But I guess we'll get a little push, there'll be some amount of pull, and balance will get restored in some time.
Absolutely. We're really finding it very interesting that, the most interesting learnings that we're getting, of course, besides your invaluable total look at IT or automation or artificial intelligence, is that human aspect that you're constantly bringing. There is a question that we received, which was really interesting. Now, completely divorcing ourselves from AI and technology, automation, or the fourth industrial revolution, as you keep on talking about, there you are having this entire experience of over 26 years in the form of being committed with Wipro, where you have been a true votary of balancing culture and strategy. And this is something that you even tell right now to the companies that you're advising, or the startups that you're advising on their journey to scaling big, about how they need to definitely ensure that culture, engaging your employees, is very, very critical. So how did you develop that take on engagement as a question on engagement, developing this wellness component, how performance of the teams is very, very critical? And this especially also comes across when you were leading the so-called Wipro homes, or how it came from the Sherlock Holmes, as you said, that journey. We were just reading and digging deeper into that. So can you tell us a little bit more about that aspect, that how did you pick up this entire notion about making sure that culture is equally important, strategy, mixing that together? And along with that, there's also, how did you pick up this interest in circular economy and your ESG experience overall? Because you are a person who truly believes in sustainable profitability. And this is where I think we also see a consonance, because even when we talk about soil, when we're looking at Anil Sir, Sahil, they're constantly talking how it needs to be conscious capitalism. So there is this parallel that's clearly being drawn. So can you tell us a little bit more about both these aspects, about how you think that culture engagement, that is so critically important, and the second part about your entire association and your passion for ESG, circular economy, instead of a linear economy, as that's going to be completely making, rather that's more something that we need to be worried about, linear economy, and making sure that it's replaced with circular economy, versus being more worried about AI and the potential that's having. So tell us more about both these aspects.
Again, explosive set of questions, but I'll try and answer each one of them one by one. ESG is much in the news, and AI is becoming all pervasive in sustainability. So whether it's climate change, a very uh, released by IGPP, intergovernment panel. And we've talked about climate change in terms of the 1.5 degree, very famous number, which has already been crossed, from the beginning of, or I would say from the last century to now. And people thought that we'll hit this, beyond 2050 or even closer to 2100, but we've crossed that 1.5 degree mark already. So there is absolute havoc in terms of climate, food, energy, water, the real sustainability of this planet, the real existence of this human race in many ways is actually under question. There are enough, examples about it. If you look at what happened in Pakistan last year in terms of the floods, where literally one third of their population was displaced. If you look at the forest fires that happened in Australia again last year, devastated so many uh, acres and hectares of forest land. If you look at the Amazon River basin, which is, and you look at the entire tree foliage, every second we are depleting the planet with 10 football fields worth of tree cover and green. 10 football fields per second. So you can imagine the speed at which we are actually doing deforestation out here. You look at what we call the American West and the US. If you look at states like California, states like Arizona, fairly well-known Las Vegas in terms of Nevada. These 7 to 8 states are actually running dry in terms of water situation. A very famous river called River Colorado, one of the water-giving rivers to this Midwest, is about the lowest in about 200 years itself. February as a month in India was the hottest in 122 years. So there are enough examples of what devastation is actually happening all around us. With a special focus on water, where roughly 2 billion people don't have access to good potable water is a big situation. And we are already calling it digital water because AI is becoming all pervasive in the water scenario and in the climate scenario. I'll give you a few examples there. European Space Agency, ESA, is actually building a digital twin of planet Earth. And that's a fantastic idea. So they plan to complete that by 2030. What they want to do is create a virtual digital twin of planet Earth. So rivers, seas, continents, land masses, and they are actually going to be using prediction uh, in these land masses and water as to how climate is going to impact or human intervention is going to impact. And they'll also be managing what we call human behavior, where how does it impact a human? So right from mass migration, and we've seen that, many times before, to actually the existence of the human race is becoming a challenge. So that's a great thing that you should look at. The project is called Destination Earth or Destiny. So it's Destin E, and that's being run by the European Space Agency. Again, a great way of looking at how AI can actually play a pivotal role in terms of furthering our human existence. The second thing, which is very interesting, is if you look at US alone, uh, as per the recent report, 7 billion gallons of water are lost in the US alone every day. Now, how do you bring in technology to reduce that wastage? So there is a very famous acronym, again, the 3 Rs. Uh, what we call reduce, reuse, and recycle. Fairly famous 3 Rs, which are there. And there was World Recycling Day a few days back. So how do you make sure technology is getting impacted through these 3 Rs? So AI can do perhaps a lot of things better. We talk about singularity than humans. So whether it's a fault detection in a water pipe, whether it's looking at your consumption in at home, whether it's looking at how water right from the source to your house is being managed, whether it's using IoT devices to look at usage and optimization, technology is absolutely everywhere. The third example I'll give of this intersection of AI and environment is, agriculture. 70% of the water, what we call accessible water, is used by agriculture globally, and 42% of that is actually wasted. How can technology play a role out here? So right from telling the farmer as to what is the best time to water his or her crops, telling a farmer that how much water he or should do, based on satellite imagery, based on groundwater situation, based on climate, based on weather forecast. It's a boon to people in terms of how much fertilizer you should use, when you should, and how much we should do, and of course reduce wastage when the actual water is being done. Because farmers, even if you look at in India, believe that water is free, water is everywhere, and they will never be charged. And for agriculture, actually, they're not charged because they use bore wells, and that depletes their groundwater, tremendously. So all in all, it's a great place to invest in, and I would suggest that you move a little more long term in your career. Read this report from World Economic Forum, which gives you the top 10 risks that humans are going to face in a 10-year period, and especially when you're planning your career ahead, the next job, higher education. That's a good report to look at. Out of the 10 top risks, 6 are related to climate and environment. So right from global warming to the food crisis that we're going to be having, to the water crisis, to mass migration, to displacement of people, that is the area which is becoming extremely hot. So if you're really looking at investment, then perhaps you should look at ESG as an area to put your mind, energy, and soul as a career.
Absolutely. I think you put it and summarized it really well. Before we wrap up, there was also one question. Of course, we have been following whatever you've been writing or the content that you produce in terms of coming for these kind of conversations. So you have, of course, brought forward that how it's very interesting that roughly 44 countries have made their own AI policies, and how it's interesting that Singapore, which is up to making sure that there's a Singapore brain being developed, to even India's Niti Aayog AI for all. But there's this constant question about, how would you measure the performance of the AI teams in companies? What is the metrics? Of course, you talk a little more about that, but how much value are organizations creating vis-a-vis their AI team? Of course, you've mentioned that how at Wipro you were able to integrate AI very fluently with the human resources team, and from the applicant tracking systems to the other aspects of performance management. But still, there's this intrinsic question being asked multiple times, that how do you measure the success of AI, particularly where teams are concerned? So this was also a question that we received for you, so it'll be great to know again your perspective and your view on this.
Sure. So I'll come back to acronyms again. And in Wipro, we had constituted 3 acronyms. The first was economics, which is a no-brainer. When people introduce technology, they look at how much money you're going to save. So if you're going to bring in 25, 30, 35% in terms of cost optimization, then people will love it, because then humans can do more value-added jobs. For example, the jobs getting pushed out from humans, for example, data entry, for example, proofreading, these are jobs which are going to be passe for all of us, and very soon perhaps even presentation creation will go away with there is so much technology available. So economics is the first basic thing that people look at technology. The second is what they look at, efficiency, which means if you're able to do a task in 100 hours, can AI do it at scale in 70 hours and 50 hours and 40 hours? If you are able to give an uptime and resilience of 99.9% through humans, can you actually push it to 5 nines in a technology world? For example, an Amazon data center or Microsoft, etc. The third thing, E, which is extremely important, is experience. So employee satisfaction, customer satisfaction, partner satisfaction, how you're able to improve on those scores is what is very, very critical as far as technology is concerned. So we had a direct correlation between customer repeat business and customer satisfaction, what they call the Net Promoter Score, NPS, versus how much of automation or AI you've actually done. And there was a direct correlation. And even for betterment of the company, we realized the more automation we do, of course, internal efficiency is high, internal economics is high, but you're also able to uh, drive better customer experience itself. So we used to have a measure called WDB, again an acronym called work done by bots. So we had reached as high as about 30% for a lot of contracts, which means if there are 100 people who can potentially do a job, you need 70 humans and 30 virtual humans in terms of cloud bots who can actually do the job, which I thought was a great measure. Direct impact to your bottom line and top line for companies in terms of all the financial metrics. So the key is to link technology to outcomes. The key is to link not just in operational parameters, but also in business parameters. And the key is to maintain a balance between human life and technology as you move along. Don't become too swayed by technology that you forget the people which drive the technology. That would be my last suggestion to all of you.
Absolutely. I think it was so enriching overall, and like you always say that the AI part is going to be away from biases, but at the same time just making sure that it's not just focusing on efficiency and economy, but also getting the humane aspect. We of course loved exploring more about the human part, because I think that was something that was completely missing. And before we wrap up, we of course came to know about your life 2.0, your love for Carnatic flute, or how you again started playing cricket back again. That was of course interesting. We'd like to just before we wrap up, just take a line or two from you, because we were looking at that how you were one of the most ragged freshers to literally getting that leadership position, 26 years of absolute solid experience at Wipro. So can you help us understand that, that how did you chart out? Of course, you said that you were taking your career in a very regimented manner in this conversation also at the initial part, but having said that, now to a person who's giving CEO as a service, your life 2.0 also, but still, how did you carve that journey, and how did you not get bogged down, and still the way that you're making us all feel that you're very appreciative, so humble and grounded. So could you just probably wrap it up with one or two lines telling us about how you keep yourself grounded, how did you chart your career to making sure that it is a spectacular one, to becoming like a CXO, and like you said that at one point at Wipro you had more chiefs than the CEO himself would have. So can you probably help us understand that in one or two lines, and probably that'll be the biggest takeaway from this entire conversation.
So I'll perhaps answer this a little differently, Neerja, in terms of what has been my learning. I'm still learning. I'm on a constant treadmill to learn, but I'll give you a summary of what has worked well for me in life. The first is how do you ensure that you take things as it comes? I don't know how many of you play cricket, but sometimes we do what we call premeditated cricket shots. You've already made up in your mind that you're going to step out and you're going to hit it, on top of the bowler, or you're going to hit it on the leg side. And then we realize that the bowler is bowled a googly because we premeditated. Life is also something like that. If you become too conscious, too hard, too pushy in a particular direction, with all your, if I may say so, limited understanding of life, sometimes they may not be the best decisions for you. But if you let the ball come to you, you're observing right from the bowler's action till the ball reaches the bat, and you're playing the stroke which is the most suited. And that's what I'm learning in cricket nowadays. Treat life like that also. Let things come to you, aspire, reach out higher, but also let things come to you, because sometimes what the higher energy and what the universe holds for us is what we also don't know. But we should be appreciative and welcoming of anything and everything that comes in our life, rather than being very choosy and fussy that I will do this role, I will not do this role. And that's what has helped me in my career. So that's one. The second is that career is just one aspect of your life. Sometimes it becomes overwhelming and we give it so much importance that it becomes overpowering, and that starts dictating, even though the companies don't behave that way. But we feel that bosses and companies are behaving that way because we've given so much of importance for every breathing moment. And there are other aspects of life that we tend to forget. I think keep that balance very, very effectively, because what you'll take from this lifetime are learnings and experiences, and they should be good in every possible way for you, rather than you being extremely focused in one area of your life itself. The third, of course, is keep your higher goal in life always there, and things will fall in place. So if your ultimate aim is to be a higher version of yourself in every aspect, in the physical aspect, in the mental aspect, in the knowledge aspect, in the emotional aspect, anything and everything in your career, in your studies, in your friendship, in your family world, if it's giving you that push, the nudge up, it's great. And I saw this extremely nice equation which said that if you keep becoming 1.01 of yourself every single day, and it has a compounded effect, you become a fantastic version of yours in a few years itself. So look at the delta, look at that incremental change, look at that small step that you've taken additional today, and keep adding those steps so that when you look back at some point of your life, you would have realized that you've climbed so high without you actually knowing about it. So keep taking those baby steps.
Thank you so much. I think we had so much of learning overall. Thank you so much for your time. So let things come to you and look at that delta, because that's going to be making a key change. And this comes from an AI enthusiast. Thank you so much, sir, for your time. Thoroughly enjoyed it and loved the learnings that you put together. And thanks everyone for joining us today.
Thank you so much, friends. Wish you the very best in life, and do reach out to Soil or to me if you need any further help. But wish you the very best.
Definitely, sir. We'll keep in touch with you over LinkedIn and would love to host you back again very soon. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.